There's something in the trees. You can't see it, but you feel it watching, the weight of eyes just beyond the firelight, the whisper of branches shifting in the dark. They didn't know it yet, not on that first evening, but it was already there. 13 of them walked into the woods. At the front was Caleb, map tucked under his arm, his steady stride setting the pace. Ethan moved beside him, joking every chance he got, his voice louder than the forest wanted. Rachel and Sophie, their girlfriends, kept close, their laughter carrying on the wind. The trail narrowed. The sun sank lower. Shadows stretched across the dirt. Jason stopped suddenly. "Wait, did you hear that?" The group stilled. Off to the right, something shifted in the underbrush. Not wind, not squirrel. Jason's eyes locked on the trees, jaw tight. Caleb didn't break stride. "Deer," he said firmly, calm enough for the whole group to hear. "They'll keep their distance." Ethan clapped Jason on the back, grinning. "Or Bigfoot. Guess we'll know if you're gone by morning." A few chuckles rose, though thin and uneasy. Jason didn't laugh. He lingered, staring into the dark. That's when Logan came up quietly beside him. His voice was low, almost reluctant. "It's probably nothing, like Caleb said. Let's just keep moving." Jason glanced at him. "You really think so?" Logan's eyes stayed on the tree line for a moment before he answered. "Yeah." Then he adjusted his pack and kept walking. Jason hesitated, then followed. The group's chatter picked up again, louder than before, forced. Logan fell a step behind, glancing back once more before the tree swallowed the last of the light. By the time they made camp, the fire was crackling, sparks leaping high. Laughter still came, but softer now. For a while, the circle of light felt safe. But just beyond its glow, the forest stood still, watching, waiting. The fire burned steady, sparks drifting up into the night. 13 faces glowed in the light, their shadows stretching tall across the forest. For a while, it was laughter and easy talk, the kind of noise that filled the silence between the trees. Ethan leaned back, grinning. "First day down, no one's dead yet. That deserves a badge in the morning." Rachel rolled her eyes, but she was smiling. "What kind of badge? Didn't trip on a root?" "That one's mine," Jason said quickly, lifting his hand. Nearly face-planted twice. Laughter rippled around the circle, light and easy. Sophie nudged Caleb. Chloe whispered something that made Hannah laugh, and for a moment it felt safe. Then it came. A sharp snap from the tree line. Not the fire, not close. Something heavy breaking a branch under weight. The laughter died, heads turned. But it was Logan who froze, his eyes locked on the trees, his face pale in the shifting glow. Sophie gave a nervous laugh, pressing closer to Caleb. "As long as no bears wander through camp, I'm good." Emily tried to echo her, but her laugh came out thin. Hannah leaned forward, her voice sharper. "Forget bears, coyotes are worse. You know they hunt in packs, right?" Mark shook his head, calm and steady. "Coyotes stay clear of people. Most animals do. Doesn't it matter if you re-1 or 13? They don't want anything to do with us." The silence stretched. Only the fire cracked. Ethan jabbed a stick into the flames, grinning. "Or maybe it's Bigfoot. But hey, Bigfoot knows better than to mess with me." That earned a ripple of laughter, shaky, but enough to stitch the mood back together. Still, Logan didn't move. His eyes stayed locked on the tree line, jaw tight, like he was waiting for something to step forward. The fire burned lower, the circle shrinking closer to the heat. Talk thinned into tired murmurs, laughter trailing off into yawns. Caleb stretched, tossing the last bit of wood onto the flames. "All right, we've got miles tomorrow. Better get some sleep while we can." Rachel leaned against him, already pulling her jacket tight. Sophie nodded, brushing ash from her hands. One by one, the group began retreating toward their tents, voices dropping softer, the sound of zippers tugged against the quiet. Ethan grinned at Jason as he unrolled his bag. "Badge ceremony in the morning, don't forget." Jason chuckled, shaking his head. "As long as mine says almost fell but didn't, I'll take it." That earned a low laugh or two, fading quickly as the others settled. But Logan stayed by the fire. He hadn't spoken since the snap in the trees, his eyes never leaving the tree line. The glow lit his face, pale and tense, like he was waiting for something to step out of the dark. Mark noticed and gave a firm clap on his shoulder. "It was nothing. Animals don't care about us out here. Get some sleep." Logan didn't answer right away. Finally, he nodded, though his eyes still lingered on the black between the trees. The fire popped once more as he turned away. The woods answered with silence. Morning came with pale light spilling over the hills, the forest hushed and damp. Mist clung low to the ground, curling between the trunks. Birds called out sharp and bright, as though the night had been empty of fear. The camp stirred awake. Rachel fumbled with the stove. Sophie yawned into her sleeve. Ethan teased Jason for his messy hair. The night before seemed smaller in daylight, easy to explain, easy to push aside. But Logan didn't forget. Morning light cut through the mist, thin beams slipping between the trees and painting the clearing in pale silver. Birds called sharp and steady, like nothing had stirred the woods all night. The camp came alive in slow fits, zippers rasping open, boots scraping against stone, the hiss of water heating on the stove. Ethan yawned loud enough to make Rachel swat his arm. Batch ceremony round 2. Jason still in the running for most likely to eat dirt before breakfast. Jason sat up, hair sticking in every direction, and shot him a look. At least I didn't trip on the stove last night. That pulled laughter around the circle, easy and warm. Sophie teased Caleb about his snoring. Chloe fussed with her tangled braid. Hannah grumbled about stiff legs. For a little while, the night before was just smoke fading from the fire, but Logan stayed quiet. He ate without speaking, eyes flicking off into the tree line, as if daylight hadn't pushed the shadows back far enough. By late morning, they were back on the trail, the line of 13 threading through the forest. Sunlight broke in scattered shards through the branches, modeling the dirt path. Chloe hummed softly to herself. Tyler lagged near Jason, and Emily kept asking how much farther until they reached the next ridge. Jason pointed ahead at a fallen log that split the trail. Obstacle course time? Who's first? Ethan vaulted it, landing with a grin. C. Easy. Badge for style points. Laughter followed, but quieter than before. The trees seemed thicker now, the light duller. A breeze rustled the canopy, carrying with it a sound low and strange. Not quite animal, not quite wind. Sophie stopped short. What was that? Caleb answered quickly, too quick. Coyote. They sound worse than they are. Mark adjusted his pack, his tone firm. And they don't want anything to do with us? Just keep moving? Jason chuckled, forcing ease back into the group. Cool, so we're safe unless it's a squirrel with a grudge? It earned a few scattered laughs, but the forest didn't echo them back the same way it had the day before. Logan didn't laugh at all. His eyes stayed on the tree line. By midday, the forest had swallowed the sun. The trail wound deeper between tall pines, the canopy thickening overhead until the light came in thin green shafts. The chatter had thinned too. No more jokes about badges, just the crunch of boots and the creak of straps. Break time, Caleb called, pausing where the path widened into a small clearing. He dropped his pack, rubbing his shoulders. We'll push to the ridge after this. Jason unshouldered his own bag, catching his breath. This ridge better have a view worth dying for, Sophie chuckled. Or at least a bathroom. Hannah laughed too, but it faded quickly as she looked down at something near the edge of the clearing. Guys? Everyone drifted over. Impressed into the soft earth was a footprint, broad and deep. Not a boot, not a paw anyone could name. 4 distinct impressions at the front, a drag of weight at the heel. Mark crouched, frowning. Could be a bear. The ground soft, it would stretch prints are weird. Hannah shook her head. I've seen bear prints. That's not a bear. Large dog, maybe, Caleb said, though his tone wavered. People bring strange things out here. Logan crouched too, his fingers hovering over the print without touching it. He didn't say anything, but his eyes narrowed, scanning the trees. Jason forced a laugh. Cool, so mutant bear dog. Nice. A few nervous chuckles fluttered and died. Then faintly came a sound, like voices carried on the wind. 2 or 3 words, indistinct, slipping between the trees. Emily straightened. Did you hear that? What? Sophie asked. A voice, like someone talking. Caleb shook his head quickly. Wind through the branches, it plays tricks on your ears. Emily frowned, but said nothing more. Logan's eyes stayed on the tree line, his jaw tightened. They shouldered their packs again. The path narrowed, curving between thick stands of pine. Overhead, crows scattered, con sharp and sudden. Maybe, Jason said lightly, this is where we meet the mutant bear dog's cousin. The joke didn't land. No one laughed. The forest pressed in closer with every step. By late afternoon, the trail dipped into a shallow clearing ringed with trees. Caleb raised a hand. Here, flat ground, enough space for all the tents. We'll stop before dark. Packs dropped. Poles clattered. The chatter picked back up as the group spread out. Jason wrestling with his tent, Sophie swatting at gnats. Hannah swearing under her breath when a stake bent sideways in the dirt. Badge for worst tent builder. Ethan grinned, watching Jason struggle. Jason smirked. At least mine's standing. Yours looks like it's drunk. That earned laughter across the clearing, light and easy. For a while, the only sounds were voices and nylon snapping taut. Soon, the fire was lit, flames flickering against the growing dusk. Someone passed around packets of trail mix. Sophie dug out a bag of marshmallows she'd stashed, and the mood swelled warm again. Rachel leaned back against Caleb's shoulder, glancing toward the trees. I know it's stupid, but doesn't it feel like something's watching us? The chatter stilled for half a second. Then Jason let out a mock gasp. Bigfoot finally caught up. Ethan raised his stick like a sword. And he still knows better than to mess with me. Laughter spilled out again, chasing the silence away. Mark tossed another log onto the flames. Seriously, it's nothing. Animals don't care about us. Woods are full of noises, wind, owls, raccoons. That's all it ever is. Emily nodded, though she still glanced at the tree line. Hannah cracked a joke about raccoons in size 12 boots, and the circle burst into laughter once more. For most of them, the unease was gone. Explained away, forgotten. But Logan stayed quiet by the fire. His eyes never left the dark. Dark fell fast. One moment the trees glowed in orange light. The next the forest was a black wall pressing tight against the fire. The circle drew closer, their laughter softened, but the jokes hadn't stopped. Jason leaned forward, holding his marshmallow like a torch. When we get back, we're selling this story. 13 go in, 13 come out, and Bigfoot runs for the hills. Assuming your tent doesn't collapse first, Ethan teased. That earned another round of laughter, warm against the cool night air. Then came a sound. A branch snapped, not far, not deep in the woods, but just beyond the glow. The laughter thinned, heads turned. Caleb's voice came steady. Deer, probably moving toward water. Silence, then another sound. Leaves crunching under deliberate weight, slow, pacing. Emily whispered, "That's not a deer." Mark leaned forward, throwing another log onto the flames. "It's nothing. Woods are full of noise. The fire keeps everything back." As if on cue, something shifted again, this time on the opposite side of the camp. A slow scrape, like claws dragging across bark. Hannah stiffened. Okay, that one wasn't the wind. Jason forced a grin. Maybe the squirrels out here lift weights? A nervous laugh broke out, thin and quick. It didn't last. The circle grew quieter, tighter. Shadows bent long across the clearing, and the light of the fire seemed too small for the trees pressing close. Logan hadn't moved. His eyes stayed locked on the dark, unblinking, as though he saw something no one else could. The fire burned bright in the center of the clearing, its glow pushing back the dark into shifting walls of black. The group sat close, the flames warming their faces, their voices lower now, their laughter thinner. Then from somewhere beyond the tree line came a sound. Not a branch or a footfall, a murmur. A few words carried on the wind, indistinct and human. Emily straightened. "Did you hear that?" "What?" Jason asked. A voice. "Someone talking?" Caleb's tone was even, but there was a hitch in it. "Windy through the branches. Plays tricks, this deep it echoes." Before anyone could reply, something moved beyond the light, heavy, slow. Leaves shifted, then a low growl rolled through the dark. Two pale glints flared at the edge of the firelight like eyes catching a flashlight beam. Hannah's hand shot to her mouth. "There, look." Mark stood, tossing another log on the flames. "Fire keeps them back. Could be deer. Could be raccoon eyes. It doesn't matter, they're not coming in." The glints vanished. The growl faded. Ethan forced a grin. "See? Told you Bigfoot knew better than to mess with me." Laughter broke out, nervous but real. Tyler cracked a joke about raccoons lifting weights. Sophie teased Jason about being jumpy, and slowly the circle loosened again. Caleb cleared his throat. "All right, we've got a long hike tomorrow. Tents up, everyone get some sleep." They split off into their shelters, 3 or 4 per tent. The couples tucked into their own. Zippers rasped shut. Sleeping bags rustled. From inside the tents, the fire's glow painted faint orange across the nylon. The woods were quiet now. No snaps, no footsteps. But faintly, here and there, came whispers, soft, like voices too far to make out. They drifted between the trees, circling the camp, fading, returning, then gone again. Lily pressed her face into her sleeping bag. Emily whispered something to Sophie. In the couple's tents, hands clasped in the dark. The whispers thinned, slipping away. Logan was the last one at the fire. The others had long since retreated to their tents, their voices fading into the rustle of sleeping bags and zipped nylon. He sat alone for a while, the flames reflecting in his eyes, the wood hissing low. Before he finally stood, he crouched close and fed the fire a few more logs, sparks leaping up into the dark. He stared into the trees once more, silent, unblinking, then turned and disappeared into his tent. The flames snapped bright, then slowly sank lower. By the time the forest clock crept past 3 in the morning, the fire was only a dim bed of coals. Then the glow vanished altogether. The camp fell into true darkness. That was when the first sound came. A shuffle, low, heavy, too close. Emily stirred in her tent, clutching Lily's hand. Hannah sat bolt upright, her breath sharp. Tyler whispered, "Stay quiet," as if volume might draw whatever lingered outside. From the guy's tent, Jason tensed. He felt Mark's elbow brush his arm, Jordan shifting on the other side. No one spoke. Outside, something breathed, a long, wet exhale. Then claws scraped against stone. The sound moved, slow steps circling the camp. The creatures never came into view, but the tents shook faintly with their passing, fabric straining against the pull of the night air. Then came another sound, whispers, then human, like voices carried just above a breath. They slipped between the trees, circling the camp in the opposite direction of the beasts. Rachel clutched Caleb inside their tent. "Someone's out there." "Don't move," Caleb whispered back. "Don't leave the tent." The whispers grew louder, layered. Some high, some low, fragments of words brushing the nylon like hands across cloth. The beasts snarled in response, a chorus of guttural sounds, then pulled back. But they didn't leave. For hours, the noises came and went, claws scraping. Footsteps pacing, the beasts circling tighter, only to recoil each time the whispers swelled. No one dared unzip their tents. No one dared light the fire. The girls clung to one another in silence, the boys frozen, the couples curled together, waiting. Tyler whispered once, "It's not real, it's not real," though his hands shook as he pressed them over his ears. Jason buried his face into his bag, willing the sounds away. Ethan lay still, rigid, staring into the dark above him. And Logan, silent in the tent, never closed his eyes. When the first pale light of morning bled through the nylon, the noises finally stopped. The camp was still. The creatures were gone. No one moved until the sun broke through the trees. From inside the tents, it seemed nothing had touched them. But outside, the clearing told another story. The first light of day broke over the ridge, spilling pale gold across the clearing. One by one, zippers rasped open, and figures crawled out into the cool morning air. For a moment, it felt like relief. They had made it through the night. The whispers had stopped. The beasts had gone. The fire was nothing but ash, but no one had been touched. Then Rachel gasped. Her tent, what was left of it, sagged in shreds, nylon torn into ribbons, poles snapped clean. The others turned. Every tent was the same. Ripped apart, some collapsed entirely, others half standing with claw marks scoring the fabric. Not one shelter had been spared. Sophie pressed her hands to her mouth, both couples' tents torn apart and clawed open. Not one was left untouched. No. The guy's shelter flattened, the girls' and Tyler's tent shredded. Emily clung to Chloe. Every tent was destroyed. It was them. Whatever was out here last night, it was animals, Mark cut in sharply. He stepped over a collapsed pole, inspecting the claw marks. Something scavenged while we slept, that's all. Emily shook her head. Animals don't tear up everything, not like this. They do, Caleb said firmly. Coyotes, raccoons, even bears. They smell food, they come close. Sophie hugged her arms close, but they were right outside. I heard them, we all did. What if they come back? They won't. Caleb's voice was steady, cutting across the panic. He crouched by one of the torn poles, running his fingers along the shredded nylon. They came, because the fire died. That's all. We keep it burning, they stay away. Mark stood, dusting off his hands. And then they left, didn't they? Someone must have scared them off. There were nods, murmurs. No one claimed it, but no one doubted it, either. In the safety of daylight, it was easier to believe one of them had shouted and had driven the animals away. The inexperienced hikers still looked pale, clinging to one another. We should just turn back, Chloe whispered. Get out before it happens again. We can't waste the trip, Ethan said firmly. The ridge is less than an hour away. We make it there, take in the view, and head back. Jason gave him a look. Easy for you to say. You didn't hear what I heard. We'll be out of the forest before dark, Caleb said, and if we don't, Hannah shot back. Hannah's hands shook. They'll be back tonight. They'll do it again. Mark shook his head. Then we light the fire before the sun sets. The animals won't come near us if it's burning. You saw that yourself. The fire burned out, and that's what let them in. Caleb turned to the group, voice steady. Tyler tried to break the silence. At least we still have the bags. We can make do without the tents. Caleb nodded. Yes, exactly. We've got sleeping bags. It's dry, no rain in the forecast for days. We don't need tents if it comes to that. Just a fire, that's all. As long as it burns, they won't come back. Chloe looked pale. Lily didn't say a word. Mark nodded. He's right. There's no rain or any storms in the foreseeable future. Caleb straightened, brushing dirt from his hands. We can't not turning back. The ridge is less than an hour from here. We'll make camp on the way back if we need to. But the fire stays lit through the night. That planted something like control back into the camp. The words landed heavy but certain. Slowly, the fear in the circle dulled. The inexperienced hikers still looked uneasy, but the experienced ones had given them rules, structure. That steadied the group. A rule, a way forward. The fear didn't vanish, but it dulled enough to get packs slung and boots laced. Still, the air hung heavy with unease. The inexperienced hikers clung close, voices hushed. Hannah cursed under her breath. Chloe, quieter, glanced toward Ethan as he helped Caleb pack. But Sophie was already nudging Hannah, whispering low. Their eyes darted between Jason and Tyler, a shared smirk tugging at their lips, even in the gloom. Rachel froze, staring at what had been her tent. The nylon sagged in tatters, poles snapped and bent into the dirt. And one by one, the hikers stepped into the pale morning mist. No one wanted to linger in the clearing among the shredded tents. Packs were shouldered, straps tightened. The trail waited, the ridge just ahead. And behind them, the shredded tents hung like warnings in the morning light. Mark kept the lead with Caleb, their voices steady, pointing out tree roots and slopes to the others. Ethan tried to lighten the mood with small jokes, but they fell flat. At the rear, Logan walked a few paces behind Jason and Tyler, his eyes flicked from shadow to shadow. In the gaps between trees, he caught flashes, shapes moving, quick and silent, slipping just out of sight. Once, he saw a glint, 2 pale points like eyes, then gone when he blinked. Ahead, Sophie broke the quiet. Who yelled last night? When the animals left? Rachel frowned. It wasn't me. It wasn't anyone in our tent, Sophie said. We didn't leave. We were all awake. Emily glanced at Hannah. We didn't either. Jason, did any of you guys? Jason looked between Jordan and Logan, then Jason shook his head. No, I stayed. We all did. Ethan shook his head, joining the conversation. Nobody from our tent left. Caleb added from the front. Neither did we. The trail slowed as the question rippled through the line. Each tent group compared notes, their voices low. Every answer was the same. Nobody had left. Nobody had shouted. Sophie's voice dropped. Then, who did? Silence followed, broken only by the crunch of boots on dirt and the call of a crow somewhere high. Logan kept walking, jaw tight, eyes flicking to the trees again. The shapes were still there, pacing them, slipping behind trunks. He didn't look at the others, didn't answer the question. Then, faintly, came a whisper, a voice low and close, curling from the tree line. It said something he couldn't make out, a sound that felt like his name but wasn't. Logan's stomach tightened. He didn't say a word. The ridge wasn't far now, less than an hour. But with every step, the forest felt closer, heavier, like it was listening. By mid-afternoon, the ridge should have been in sight. Mark and Caleb said it was no more than an hour's climb, yet the trail kept twisting lower, the trees pressing close, the air damp and cool. Wait, Emily stopped, pointing through the brush. Between leaning pines, something stood. Not a ridge, not rock. It was a wall, gray, splintered wood. Then another wall, set at a right angle. The rest of the structure was gone. No roof, no floor, just broken beams sunk into the dirt. An old cabin, Hannah asked. They pushed closer, stepping into the clearing. The forest seemed heavier here, the canopy bending overhead so that daylight dulled like dusk. The 2 remaining walls leaned inward, their boards scarred and moss-grown, framing the clearing like broken teeth. Jason dropped his pack with a thud. At least we've got shelter. Better than nothing. Mark ran a hand over the wood. We're nowhere near the ridge. We must have gone off trail. Caleb frowned, pulling his map, but the lines of the land didn't match. This shouldn't be here. As they talked, Logan hung back. His eyes caught a flicker in the trees beyond the cabin. Not pale ice this time, red, glowing, steady, watching. His chest tightened. He opened his mouth. Jason. But Sophie called over her shoulder. Look, if we stack packs against this wall, we can block the wind. Logan tried again, voice lower. Tyler, I saw... Hey, over here. Ethan's voice cut him off, motioning to an old fire pit ringed in stones. Perfect spot. Logan stepped forward, words rising sharp. Listen to me, there's... Caleb, come check this out, Mark called, pulling him away. The group shifted toward the fire pit, their voices layering, drowning him out. Logan stood alone near the tree line, his eyes locked on the glowing red points, staring back. They didn't blink. They didn't move. They only waited. He swallowed hard, the words dying in his throat. The others didn't notice he'd fallen behind. The cabin wasn't where it should be, and something was watching them from the dark. The ruined cabin sat in uneasy quiet, 2 crumbling walls catching the last gold of the sun. Packs were scattered, some leaning against the stone, others dropped in the dirt. A few of them sat cross-legged near the fire pit, trying to catch their breath, while the rest argued in low voices about whether to push back the way they came. Jason glanced around, frowning. Hey, where's Logan? The voices faltered, heads turned. Ethan stood, scanning the trees. He was right here. He couldn't have gone far. No, I swear he was just sitting by the fire, Sophie said, her voice rising. She pointed to Logan's pack, propped against the wall. His water bottle was still half full beside it. Then where the hell is he? Mark snapped. They called his name. At first calm, then louder, Jason circled the fire, looking behind the broken wall. Emily shouted into the trees, her voice echoing off the ridge. Nothing answered but the wind. A silence spread, heavier than before. "Wait," Rachel whispered. "How long has it been since any of us saw him?" No one replied. They all tried to replay the last hour in their heads, but the details slipped like sand. Logan had been there. And then he wasn't. Maybe he went to take a leak. Jordan offered weakly, though his face betrayed doubt. He wouldn't leave his pack, Ethan said flatly. Not without telling someone. Fear cracked through the group. The less experienced hikers began to panic, voices overlapping, some insisting Logan must be lost, others whispering that something had taken him. Caleb raised his voice. "Enough. We're not helping him by yelling at each other. We need to decide, do we wait here, or do we go back for help?" The words split them down the middle. Hannah shook her head. "We can't just sit here. If he's out there, we need help, real help. Someone needs to go back." Emily nodded quickly, clinging to Sophie's arm. "We're already too far. What if it's me next? What if it's any of us?" Mark stepped in, jaw tight. "You're not going back alone. You'll get lost faster than he did. If you're leaving, I'm coming with you." Jordan added, "Me too. Someone needs to keep everyone safe." Jason shook his head. "And what if Logan comes back? We can't just abandon the cabin." "Cabin?" Hannah snapped. "Look at it. It's nothing but walls. It's not safe at all." "It's better than nothing," Caleb said firmly. "If he finds his way back, this is the only landmark around. If we all leave, he'll have nothing." The arguing swelled. Finally, the fracture became unavoidable. Hannah, Lily, Emily, Mark, and Jordan gathered their packs, determined to backtrack to the trailhead and find help. The others, Caleb, Ethan, Jason, their girlfriends, and Tyler remained at the ruined cabin, hoping Logan would return. The last thing Rachel said before turning away was barely more than a whisper. "If he comes back, don't let the fire die." The decision was made with the sun still hanging high, though none of them felt its warmth. The shadows of the trees already stretched long across the ruined cabin. Mark tightened the straps on his pack. "If we leave now, we can clear the ridge by sundown. That gets us halfway back before night falls." Jordan nodded, glancing at the three girls who had chosen to follow. "We'll move fast, just stay close." Lily's lip trembled as she hugged Tyler. "You should come with us." Ethan shook his head. "If Logan makes it back, he'll look for us here. The cabin's the only landmark in miles. He needs a place to return to." Jason crossed his arms. "And if you get lost? If night falls while you're out there?" "We'll be fine," Mark said firmly, though his eyes betrayed unease. The last of the sun caught the ruined cabin in firelight as the group of 5 turned down the trail, their voices fading into the woods. For the 7 who remained, silence came quickly. Caleb knelt by the fire pit, striking sparks. Building the first flames of the night, Ethan gathered what dry branches he could. Shoppy sat with her knees pulled tight to her chest. "It feels wrong. Like the woods know we split." From somewhere deep in the trees came a sound soft, almost human. A whisper. Not words, just breath rushing through the branches. Jason froze. "Did you hear that?" Caleb leaned in closer to him. It was just the wind. But Logan had said nothing before he vanished. And now, as the last of the sun drained from the valley, it felt as if the trees themselves were listening. The fire threw shifting light across their faces, making every uneasy glance look sharper. Rachel spoke, her voice low, almost swallowed by the fire's crackle. "I can't stop thinking about Logan. But it's not just him. What if something happens to the others too? Mark, Hannah, Jordan. They're out there right now, and we don't even know if they're heading the right way." Tyler rubbed his hands together, staring into the flames. "That's what's freaking me out. If we don't even know where Logan went, what makes us think they'll make it back safe? No phones. No signal. It's like he cut himself off, shaking his head. Sophie finished it for him. It's like the woods swallowed him. Like swallowing all of us." The group went quiet at that, the words too close to what they'd all been thinking. Ethan forced a laugh, though it cracked. "Come on, they're fine. Mark knows how to handle himself. They've probably already found the trail and are halfway back to the car. And why didn't Logan?" Rachel shot back. He knew the trail too. Caleb's jaw tightened. He stared at the fire like he could make it burn bright. It's different. Logan might have wandered off alone. The others, at least, they've got numbers. They'll be okay. Sophie looked over at him sharply. "You believe that?" Caleb hesitated. "I want to." Tyler let out a short, nervous laugh. "That's not the same thing as yes. Nobody said anything to that." The fire popped, and everyone flinched at once. The silence that followed was worse than the sound. Finally, Rachel muttered, "We should have never split." "Too late now," Ethan said. His voice was firm, but his knuckles were white around the stick. He kept prodding into the flames. The fire burned steady, its light pushing weakly against the trees. Conversation drifted into uneasy silence, the weight of Logan's absence thick in the circle. Then Caleb stiffened. His eyes locked on the dark. He pushed up onto his knees, voice cracking. "Jason, I hear him. He's calling for me." Everyone snapped their heads toward him. "What are you talking about?" Sophie asked, alarm rising. Caleb pointed into the woods, wild-eyed. "He's out there. He's yelling for help, I swear to God." The others exchanged uncertain glances. Rachel shook her head. "I didn't hear anything." Then snap. A branch cracked loud in the tree line. Every face turned toward the sound. And there, just beyond the glow of the fire, a shape stood between the trees. Tall, motionless, watching. The circle broke into shouts. Voices colliding. "Jason!" Rachel cried. "Jason!" Tyler echoed, his voice desperate. Others joined, all at once, calling his name into the dark. The figure didn't move, just lingered at the edge of the firelight. Behind them, a groggy voice cut through the chaos. "Why the hell are you all yelling my name?" The group spun around. Jason was pushing himself up from his sleeping bag, hair a mess, eyes half shut with sleep. He blinked at the ring of terrified faces staring back at him. For a moment, no one spoke. The fire crackled, filling the silence. Then Rachel stammered, "But you were..." She pointed to the tree line where the figure had been. Her hand shook. "We saw you out there." Jason rubbed his face, frowning. "Out where?" "I was sleeping." His voice was heavy, still fighting through the fog of waking. Sophie's head turned frantically between Jason and the trees. "No, Caleb heard you. We all saw it. Someone was standing there." Jason looked around, baffled. "What are you talking about?" "I didn't go anywhere." The group fell into uneasy murmurs when they looked back toward the tree line. The shadow figure was gone. Jason shoved himself upright, muttering under his breath as he kicked free of his sleeping bag. He staggered to his feet and moved closer to the fire, the glow painting his face an uneasy orange. "All right," he said, voice rough. "Somebody tell me what the hell just happened." Caleb pointed toward the trees, still pale, his voice frantic. "You were out there. I heard you calling for me, clear as day. You were screaming for help." Jason frowned, shaking his head slowly. "I wasn't screaming. I wasn't even awake." Rachel jumped in, voice sharp with nerves. "No, we all saw it. Someone was standing right there, just past the light. Tall, still, a look like you." Jason's brow furrowed as he glanced between them. "You're saying I was in two places at once?" Sophie's voice cracked as she whispered, "We thought it was you." Jason rubbed the back of his neck, trying to piece it together. "I didn't move. I was asleep. Whatever you saw, whatever you heard, it wasn't me." The fire popped. Nobody spoke for a moment. The only sound was their uneven breathing and the restless wind in the trees. The group was still murmuring over each other, voices frayed with confusion, when Rachel suddenly stiffened. Her head snapped toward the trees, eyes wide. "Oh my God," she whispered. Then louder, breaking, "It's Logan. I hear him. He's screaming for me." She shot up, stumbling toward the edge of the firelight, her hand reaching into the dark. "He's out there. He needs me." Everyone else froze, staring at her. "What?" Sophie cried. "I don't hear anything." Jason was closest to Rachel. He grabbed Rachel's wrist just as she stepped past the circle of light. "Rachel, stop." His voice cracked with urgency. She spun on him, wild-eyed, yanking against his grip. "Let me go." "He's begging me, Jason. He's right there." Jason shook his head, his voice low but firm. "Rachel, listen to me. No one else hears him. It's not Logan. He's not there." The fire hissed as if the woods had leaned closer. Rachel stared at him in disbelief, trembling. The others whispered harshly, fear twisting their words. What did she hear? Was it Logan? Why didn't we hear it? Before anyone could answer, Sophie gasped, her whole body jolting like ice water had hit her. "Hannah's voice, I swear she's calling me." She lurched forward, but Jason shoved himself in front of her, one hand raised, the other still gripping Rachel. "No, don't you go into the dark either." Sophie's eyes filled with tears. "She said my name, Jason." She sounded terrified. Jason's chest rose and fell hard, panic flashing in his eyes as he looked from one to the other. "I don't know what you're hearing, but it's not them." The fire cracked again, and for a heartbeat the night was quiet, every face lit by the orange glow, eyes darting to the trees. Then Tyler's head jerked up. His lips trembled, breath catching in his throat. "Lily," he whispered at first, then his voice cracked into a scream. "Lily is out there. She's calling me. She's hurt. She's begging me to come." He bolted to his feet, stumbling toward the dark. "Tyler!" Sophie cried. Jason moved without thinking. He grabbed Tyler's arm and spun him around. Tyler fell into him, sobbing. "She needs me. She needs me." Jason wrapped both arms around him, holding him tight against his chest as Tyler collapsed to the ground. Tyler's knees buckled, his hands grabbing at Jason's arms that are wrapped around him before giving way to trembling sobs. Jason held on, his voice sharp and desperate. There's nothing there, Tyler, nothing. Listen to me, I am here. The group stared, stunned. Rachel's face was pale, Sophie's lips trembled. Caleb shook his head like he couldn't process any of it. Rachel's voice came out a whisper. He heard something. Just like me. Sophie's eyes darted to Jason, and me. The fire popped. The silence that followed was heavier than before. Caleb whispered what none of them wanted to say. Then it's not really them out there. The realization settled over the group like a weight they couldn't push off. Jason held Tyler tighter as he sobbed, pulling him closer in until Tyler's back hit his chest. His arms locked across him, firm but not harsh. Jason bent his head close, his voice low but steady, meant only for Tyler. Listen to me. That's not Lily. You know, it's not her. Tyler shook his head, tears streaking his face. I heard her. I swear I heard her. Jason tightened his hold, his breath warm against the side of Tyler's hair. I believe you heard something, but it's not her, Tyler. It's not. Tyler's body shook against him, his hands finally clutching Jason's sleeve instead of pushing it away. His voice was small, raw. Then what is it? Jason didn't answer. He just held him there, steady, his own heart racing, eyes fixed on the tree line. Jason's arms tightened unconsciously around Tyler as the others broke into chaos. Jason pressed his cheek against the side of Tyler's head for a heartbeat, whispering, "Stay with me. Stay here." Rachel's voice split the night. "Logan, he's screaming for me." She stumbled forward, reaching for the dark. Sophie clutched her head, sobbing. "Hannah, she's calling me. She needs me." Caleb turned toward the opposite side, his voice trembling. "Jordan, I hear Jordan." The fire popped. Shadows writhed at the edge of the light. The fire spat sparks into the cold air, its glow throwing jagged shadows across the broken cabin walls. Jason kept his arms tight across Tyler's chest, eyes fixed on the tree line. The forest was a hell breath around them. "Logan's out there," he whispered, then louder, panicked. "He's screaming for me. He's hurt. I've got to go." He took a step toward the dark. Joel whipped her head the other way. "No, I hear Mark. He's crying. He says I left him. He's right there." Her hands trembled at her sides. Sophie clamped her palms over her ears. "Hannah's calling me. She's sobbing. She says we not coming." She pointed a shaking finger toward the black. Ethan's voice cracked. "Jordan is out there too. He is laughing, but it's wrong. He wants me to follow." Rachel whispered. "Lily says she's just beyond the fire. She says she can see us. She wants me to come." Tyler trembled against Jason, Mark shouting at me. "He never shouts. He's begging me to help him." Their words tumbled, overlapping. 6 names, 6 directions, all of them different. Then the woods answered. At the edge of the firelight, 2 red eyes opened. They weren't glowing like reflections, not caught in the light. They burned steady, low to the ground, fixed on the group. A second pair appeared a few feet away, then another higher, then more, always in 2s, always watching. The shapes behind them never stepped fully into the light, but their movement carried weight. Branches shifted with a careful snap. Leaves shivered as something passed through them. The ground gave off a muted thump, as if something pressed down heavy and deliberate. One set of eyes lowered, almost to the earth, before rising again, the way a hunter might shift its stance. Another slid sideways, keeping pace with the circle that was forming. Each pair tracked them with patience, with focus. Chloe's voice broke to a whisper. "They're surrounding us." Caleb swallowed hard, his eyes fixed on the nearest pair. "Then why don't they come closer?" As if in answer, the eyes never advanced. They moved, but always just at the edge of light, waiting, testing, pacing, slow, controlled. The circle was complete now, no gap left unfilled. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. The fire hissed, flared, then dimmed again, and for an instant the eyes shone sharper, not flickering, but narrowing like something peering in at prey it wasn't ready to strike. And then, as if to taunt them, the voices began again, Logan's cry from one side, Mark's plea from another, Hannah's sobs drifting in close, then fading back. Each of them is different, none of them are real. Sophie's hand clutched at her chest. "They're waiting for one of us to step out." The circle of eyes held steady, unblinking, patient. Moving like predators, but showing themselves only through the sound of their weight. The shift of branches and the faint glow of pairs of eyes in the dark. The fire was small, barely more than a ring of glowing coals with thin flames licking at the air. Its light fought hard against the forest, pressing in on every side. Every snap of a log, every hiss of resin sounded too loud in the stillness. Around it, 5 figures sat close, shoulders almost touching. Their faces were pale in the flicker, eyes fixed on the trees just beyond the glow. Lily rubbed her hands together, holding them inches from the fire. Her voice was tight, strained. "We should have been out by now. We should be back at the cars." Jordan stared down at the compass clutched in his fist, jaw set. "We walked straight. I know we did, but somehow..." He swallowed. "We're right back where we started." Hannah pulled her jacket tighter, her knees drawn close to her chest. That's not possible. Unless, her words trailed into a whisper, unless the woods don't want us to leave. Emily shook her head quickly, as if denying it might make it untrue. Don't say that. Mark sat apart, his eyes locked on the tree line. He hadn't spoken in a while. His hands were planted firm against the ground, ready, waiting. The fire cracked. The trees gave nothing back. Then a sound rose, a scream, thin and sharp, threading through the dark. It carried for only a breath, then cut off. No one moved. Hannah's lips parted. That was "don't" where it cut her off, his voice low, final. His eyes never left the black wall, the forest. The silence that followed was worse than the scream itself. The dawn crept into the valley, slow and gray, the light spilling over the treetops like a reluctant promise. By the time the fire sank to glowing embers, the eyes were gone. The voices that had haunted them through the night had fallen silent. No one moved at first. They sat hollow-eyed, wrapped in blankets or arms crossed tight, staring out into the trees. Daylight should have brought relief, but the weight of the night clung to them, heavy and suffocating. Chloe was the first to speak. Her voice cracked, but she forced a brittle calm. "See, we made it through. They're gone now. Nothing stays in daylight." Ethan pushed himself stiffly to his feet, his legs unsteady. He nodded in agreement. Predators, that's all they were. Wolves, maybe coyotes. They don't come close when it's light, and they don't like fire. We know that now. Sophie shook her head, her eyes wide and wet. No, that wasn't animals. Animals don't cry like people. Don't call our names. Caleb stepped in, his tone firm but careful, like a man studying the ground beneath him. We were tired. Fear plays tricks. The dark twists of sounds, makes you hear what you expect. If we leave now and get turned around like the others, we'll be worse off than we are here. Jason finally spoke, his gaze locked on the tree line. His voice was quiet but carried. And what about Logan? The silence that followed was sharper than any scream. Rachel lowered her eyes, wringing her hands together. If we leave, he'll never find us, if he's still alive. He'll come back here. This is where we were all headed. Tyler shifted closer to Jason, his voice thin, unsure. He'll come back. He has to. We just have to give him the chance. Chloe crouched by the fire, stirring the ashes with a stick, sparks flaring briefly. Then we wait. One more night. If Logan doesn't come back by tomorrow, we move. But we don't split again. The reasoning seeped into them like warmth from the coals. None of them truly believed they were safe, but daylight dulled the terror, and the cabin felt like an anchor in the woods. Logan's absence gave them purpose. And the fire had worked once. By late morning, the choice was made. They would stay. One more night. The sun climbed higher, but in the dense forest, it barely cut through the canopy, turning the world into shifting stripes of gold and shadow. The backtracking group moved single file along a trail that didn't feel like a trail anymore. The ground was uneven, branches catching at their clothes, roots rising like traps underfoot. Mark led, his jaw tight, compass clutched in his hand. Jordan was close behind, his voice sharp with nerves. We've been walking for hours. We should have hit the road by now. Mark didn't turn. We're heading the right way. The compass hasn't shifted. Emily's voice cut in from the back, tired and thin. Then why does everything look the same? We passed that downed tree already. Swear we did. Hannah stumbled over a root, catching herself with a curse. She's right, this doesn't make sense. Either we're circling or the forest. She cut herself off, shaking her head. No, forget it. Jordan pressed harder. No, say it. What if it's not us? What if the woods? Enough. Mark's voice was low but final, the kind of tone meant to shut down panic. We keep moving, straight line. No more talking like that, but the silence that followed wasn't calm. It was thick with doubt. Every tree looked like the last, every shadow felt too long. Lily, lagging near the back, finally whispered, "It feels like the forest doesn't want us to leave." The words hung there, unchallenged, because deep down each of them had already thought the same thing. They pushed on, feet dragging, sweat running down their backs despite the chill. The road should have been behind them hours ago. Instead, the forest only seemed to grow deeper. The light was still strong when they finished stacking the last of the wood. The pile rose higher than before, neat and ready for the fire they would need once night came. The sun slanted through the trees, golden, not yet fading, and for the first time since morning, the group let themselves breathe. But Caleb didn't look convinced. He stood with his hands on his hips, staring at the stack like it wasn't enough. "It'll burn too fast," he muttered. "Not enough for a whole night." Sophie sighed, tossing a thin branch onto the pile. "It's plenty. You're just being overcautious." Ethan stepped closer, his tone steady, practical. "No, he's right. We need more enough so no one has to move in the dark." Jason frowned, wiping sweat from his forehead. "So what? You're saying we keep chopping until it's blackout? Ethan shook his head. No, we go now. There's still time. An hour, maybe more. We can get enough and be back here before it even gets close to dark. Tyler shifted uncomfortably. You really think that's a good idea? Caleb's eyes flicked to him. It's better than the fire dying halfway through the night. We saw what happens when it goes out. We can't risk that. Rachel wrapped her arms around herself, her voice small. So you're just going to walk off into the woods again? Ethan glanced at Caleb, then back at the group. Together. It's not like last night. We're not splitting up and it's still light out. If whatever that was tries anything, it won't fool both of us. Not at the same time. Sophie's face tightened, but she didn't argue. The others exchanged uneasy glances, but Caleb was already adjusting the hatchet in his grip, Ethan checking his pack strap. We'll be quick, Caleb said. Stay close to the fire, don't move. Keep it burning when the sun goes down. We'll be back before that. And with that, the two of them stepped away from the cabin, into the woods still bright with daylight, their shapes soon swallowed by the trees. The five had slowed to a crawl by the time the last traces of daylight slipped from the sky. None of them said it outright, but they all knew they weren't making it out tonight. In a clearing, they stopped, dropping their packs with weary, anxious movements. Mark crouched low, sweeping aside leaves and damp moss, muttering under his breath. Hannah and Emily gathered what wood they could find, snapping dry twigs that cracked too loud in the stillness. Hannah struck the match, shielding it with trembling hands until the fire caught. Flames flared, throwing orange light across their faces. The forest pushed back, but only just. No one sat far from the fire. Their knees nearly touched, each of them holding themselves too tightly, as though letting go, even for a moment, would invite the dark closer. Hannah tried to force a smile. See, nothing to it. One night. We'll move again at first light. Mark stared into the flames, jaw tight, not answering. Hannah shifted closer to Lily, who kept glancing at the trees as though expecting something to step out at any second. Emily sat a little apart from the others, her eyes locked on the shadows where the firelight failed to reach. She didn't speak, but her silence carried more weight than anyone's words. The crackle of the fire filled the space where conversation should have been. None of them wanted to say what they were all thinking. The forest felt closer now, heavier, as though it was listening. The fire held steady, bright against the valley's early dusk. Only 5 sat around it now, Jason, Tyler, Chloe, Sophie, Rachel, listening for footsteps that never came. Shouldn't they be back by now? Rachel asked, hugging her knees. They said they'd be quick, Chloe answered, trying to sound confident. Plenty of light left, they'll be fine. Sophie stared into the trees. It gets dark faster here, I can feel it. Jason poked the fire, sending sparks up. Tyler glanced over. They're okay, right? They know what they're doing, Jason said, more firmly than he felt. We wait. The woods exhaled a long silence. Then clear, close, and unmistakable 2 voices rose from the trees beyond the ruined wall. Jason! Hey Jason, over here! Caleb's voice. And Ethan's. Together, urgent, everyone heard it. Sophie shot to her feet. That's them. Chloe stood, relief breaking across her face. They're back. Rachel pointed toward the sound. They're calling you. Jason was already rising. Caleb? Ethan? He called into the dark. Where are you? Over here, Jason. Came Caleb, breathless, just beyond the light. We need you, hurry. Ethan, closer now. Jason. All 5 traded the same look. This wasn't like last night. It was both of them, together, that had to be real. Chloe nodded toward the trees. Go help them. We'll hold the fire. Jason grabbed his small backup flashlight from his pack-thin beam, half-charged, and stepped toward the edge of the light. Jason's weak flashlight beam cut into the trees, trembling in his hand. Caleb? Ethan? He called, stepping out past the edge of the fire's glow. The light flickered, sputtered, and went dead. Just as Jason passed out of reach of the fire's glow, 2 figures appeared from the opposite side of the ruins. Caleb and Ethan had returned. Jason's shape vanished into the dark. Jason's shape vanished into the dark of the forest. Jason. Sophie's voice cracked. Don't. With arms full of wood, both Ethan and Caleb wide-eyed as they saw Jason slipping away into the trees. What the hell is he doing? Ethan shouted, dropping the bundle. Jason, stop. We're right here. Caleb's voice was sharp, desperate. The girls' faces went pale, realization dawning too late. Then, who was calling him? Rachel whispered. Tyler looked at where Jason had vanished in the dark of the forest. Then he lunged forward, sprinting into the dark after Jason. Jason, wait. Don't listen. It's not them. Tyler. Chloe screamed, but he was already gone. Caleb and Ethan bolted after him, but as their boots hit the edge of the firelight, they froze. A pair of red eyes flared in the dark where Tyler had ran. Low, unblinking, moving in a slow, deliberate circle just beyond the glow. Heavy steps pressed down the brush. Shapes shifted, circling, waiting. Then it came Tyler's scream, not just fear, but raw agony. A shriek that ripped through the trees, a scream painful that the group around the fire went quiet. Tyler! Sophie sobbed, clutching at Rachel. Another cry from Tyler, louder, breaking before it collapsed into ragged terror. Leaves threshed. Something heavy dragged across the ground. The sound pulled farther, deeper, until it was swallowed by the forest. And then silence. The fire snapped once. The eyes stayed, watching. More eyes appeared, slowly encircling the group. Just beyond the glow of the campfire, Jason was gone. Tyler was gone. No one moved. The fire hissed and cracked, the only sound in the ruin. Beyond its glow, the red eyes seemed to move in a circle like a beast circling their prey, unblinking. Rachel's hands clutched Sophie's sleeve, her breath coming in fast little gasps. Chloe whispered, They took them. Ethan's voice was low, shaking despite his size. Don't step out. No matter what you hear, don't step out. The eyes shifted. The sound of something pacing in the leaves, moving around them, deliberate, patient. A circle, then voices. Caleb? A girl's voice, faint, soft lilies, but coming from the dark. Ethan, help me. Yasmin's voice toned, strained, crying. Please let me in, Sophie's voice, broken, begging. The girls clung to one another, shaking their heads in disbelief and fear. That's me, Sophie whispered, tears streaking her face. From the other side, Chloe, Ratch over here. Tyler's voice, clear, strong, though they all knew he was gone. Then Tyler's voice, agonized, dragging out a cry of, please help me, before it dissolved into the rustle of branches. The circle of ice tightened, slow, methodical. The sounds of heavy steps pressing the soil closer, closer, yet never breaking the ring of firelight. The ruined walls behind them offered no comfort, only shadows. Make it stop, Rachel whimpered, covering her ears. Oh God, make it stop. Sophie held her tight. It's not real. It's not real. Don't listen. But the voices kept coming, sharper, louder, layering over one another. Each call was familiar, intimate, the tones of people they loved, until the noise tangled into a chorus of pleading, mocking, crying, laughing. Ethan and Caleb stood rigid at the edge of the fire, faces pale, fists clenched around their hatchets, ready to swing at anything that came into the camp, but neither daring to step forward. The fire sputtered, throwing sparks upward. For one breath, the eyes winked out, then blinked back in, closer, and then silence. Every sound died at once. The circle of eyes held steady. No one dared breathe. The backtracking group, the 5 of them, Mark, Jordan, Hannah, Lily, and Emily, sat around the fire with flames burning low, barely enough to push back the dark. Jordan fed at another stick, his jaw tight, then it came. A scream. Tyler's voice sharp, raw, filled with pain. It ripped through the night, carried on the trees. Then the sound of something heavy being dragged. The group lurched to their feet. That's Tyler, Hannah cried. They're in trouble, come on. Without hesitation, they all bolted into the dark, hearts pounding, chasing the voice of their friend. Branches snapped underfoot, breath tearing in their throats. Tyler! Jordan shouted, his voice breaking. Emily's legs pumped, but her foot snagged on a root. She stumbled, crashed hard into the earth. By the time she lifted her head, the others had vanished into the black. Wait, please wait, she sobbed, scrambling up. But the forest swallowed them. Then she heard it. Screams ragged, panic shredding the night ahead. Hannah's voice. Jordan's. Another cry cut short with a choking gasp. The thrash of bodies, the sound of something dragging across the ground. It was chaos, violent, too fast. Emily froze, horror pitting her in place. The voices twisted, overlapping with snarls she couldn't see, like beasts circling prey. Her hands shook as she ripped her pack open. Matches. Fire starter. She clawed them out, struck a flame, her breath coming in screams and sobs, as sparks caught on a bundle of dry bark. A weak flame grew, spreading to a small fire. Emily dropped beside it, curling into herself. Stay lit, please don't go out. Her body shook violently, tears streaking her face. The dark beyond the light moved. Leaves crushed under deliberate steps. The circle began. Heavy presence walking just beyond the fire's reach. Red eyes blinked in and out, keeping her pinned. Emily clutched her arms tight around herself, rocking, whimpering through her teeth. Don't come closer, don't, the night answered with silence. Then the sound of something exhaling, deep and low, circling her fire. Emily screamed, curling tighter to the flames, her sobs breaking into gasps. Morning crept slowly, gray light bleeding through the trees. The fire at Emily's feet was nothing but ash and smoke now, its warmth fading. She sat hunched beside it, arms wrapped around her knees, rocking back and forth. Her face was streaked with dirt and tears, her lips cracked from crying through the night. The silence was almost worse than the screams had been. Nothing stirred in the forest. No birds, no wind. Emily lifted her head at last, eyes raw and swollen. She rose unsteadily to her feet, legs trembling, breath shaky, and there, through the thinning veil of trees, she saw it. The cabin, what was left of it, a pair of walls rising jagged from the earth, roof long gone, its broken frame catching the first weak light of dawn. Emily's chest tightened, a sob catching in her throat. She stumbled toward it, one hand still clutching her pack, the other dragging across the bark of trees, as though they might hold her up. The cabin wasn't far, not far at all. Her friends were gone. But the others, they had to still be there. She pressed on. The broken cabin walls rose higher as Emily stumbled closer, her steps uneven. Smoke from the campfire reached her first, then voices familiar, alive. "Someone's coming," Rachel whispered, rising to her feet. Caleb turned, his face tight with exhaustion and grief. Then his eyes widened. "Emily?" Sophie scrambled up, disbelief on her face. "It can't be." Emily collapsed against the edge of the wall, barely upright, tears streaking her face. "It's me," she croaked. Her voice broke. They rushed to her, Chloe grabbing her shoulders to keep her standing. "We thought you went back. Where are the others?" Emily shook her head violently, sobbing. Gone, and I heard them." She pressed her hands over her ears, trembling. They screamed until there was nothing left. Silence fell, heavy and suffocating. The cabin group exchanged terrified looks. Ethan crouched in front of her, voice tight. "Emily, Jason, and Tyler are gone too." Emily's head jerked up, eyes wide. "What?" "They were taken," Rachel whispered, her voice cracking. "Dragged into the dark, just like what you heard." Emily crumpled, clutching her face, the sob tearing out of her raw and hopeless. The others sank back into silence, the fire crackling between them like a fragile shield. For the first time, every one of them understood they weren't just unlucky, they were being hunted. The fire had burned low again, thin smoke curling into the gray morning sky. No one spoke for a long time. The cabin's two walls, their false anchor, loomed uselessly behind them. At last, Ethan broke the silence. "We can't stay here." Rachel lifted her head, eyes hollow. "Where would we even go?" "They're everywhere at night." "The ridge," Caleb said, his voice flat but steady. "That was the plan from the start. If we can get high enough, maybe we'll get a signal. Maybe someone's already looking for us." Emily wiped her face, her hands trembling. You think a phone will save us?" "It's all we've got," Chloe whispered. The name slipped out then, low and heavy. "Logan." Sophie's voice cracked. "What if he's still out there? What if he's alive and waiting for us?" No one answered at first. The memory of voices from the night before, their names twisted, mimicked, mocked hung in the silence. Ethan finally shook his head. "If Logan's out there, he's either already gone, or he knows what we know. The only chance any of us have is that ridge." Chloe hugged herself tighter. "If we reach it, we can call. We can bring people back. That's the only way anyone makes it out of here." The group exchanged looks, beaten but resolved. Staying meant waiting for the night, and the night meant death. The cabin had given them false shelter. Now it was nothing but a grave marker. They gathered what little they had left, packs, the last food. Matches Emily still clung to, and stood together, eyes turning uphill where the trees thinned toward light. "The ridge," Caleb said again, almost to himself. "We make it there before dark." "We have to." Emily stepped away from the cabin. They left the ruins of the cabin behind, climbing in silence. Morning light filtered thinly through the trees, casting long, skeletal shadows across the ground. The ridge loomed somewhere ahead. Caleb promised less than a day as hike, but none of them dared believe the sun would last long enough. Every snapped twig underfoot made Rachel flinch. Sophie kept close to her side, muttering, it's just us," as though the words could shield them. Emily trailed behind, her face pale, her eyes darting constantly to the trees. More than once she glanced back, convinced someone was following, but nothing moved. The air carried a strange stillness. No birds, no wind, only their labored breathing and the rustle of dry leaves. "Feels wrong," Chloe whispered finally. "It always feels wrong," Ethan said. His jaw was tight, his shoulders rigid. "That's why we don't stop." Caleb kept his eyes on the incline. "Once we hit the ridge, we'll see the sky. Open ground. That's where we'll know if we've got a signal." "But what if," Emily started, her voice cracking. "We don't ask what if," Caleb cut her off sharply. "We just move." They climbed higher, but the forest never thinned the way it should have. The trees seemed to stretch taller, leaning inward, branches tangled overhead as though the woods themselves wanted to block their path. At one point, Rachel froze, staring into the underbrush. "Did you hear that?" Everyone stopped. For a breath, silence pressed down so heavy it felt like the forest was holding its breath with them. Then just the faint trickle of dirt sliding down the slope. Rock slide, Ethan muttered, though his voice lacked conviction. Nothing else. They moved on, slower down, pressed tighter together. By mid-afternoon, their legs burned and their nerves frayed. Caleb kept promising they were close, but every rise looked the same. No open sky, no signal, only more trees. And through it all, the sense grew heavier. The feeling that they were being followed, watched from just beyond the line of sight. The ridge was still ahead. The night was coming. For a time, the ridge felt safe. The fire roared higher, flames whipping in the updraft, its heat rolling over them. Every time one of the shadows shifted, the light pushed back, keeping the eyes at bay. They can't cross it, Ethan said at last, breathless, almost daring himself to believe it. As long as this fire holds, we're fine. Jason was gone, Tyler was gone. The others who'd gone back were gone, but here, with the fire, there was strength. Rachel wiped her face with the back of her sleeve. We'll make it through tonight. Chloe crouched near Emily, resting a hand on her shoulder. They can't touch us here. We stay together. That's all that matters. The group pressed closer to the flames, leaning into its warmth. For a fragile moment, their voices softened, the panic melting into whispered comfort. Sophie even let out a shaky laugh, the sound half sobbing, half relief. We're not dying out here. Not tonight. And then a single drop, cold, on Rachel's cheek. She blinked and touched her skin. Rain, another fell. Then another. Slowly, as if the sky had been holding its breath and decided to release it all at once. Chloe tilted her head back. The night sky had been clear when they reached the ridge. No clouds, no wind. But now, thin streams powdered down, hissing against the flames. The fire popped angrily, sparks spitting. Smoke curled where the water touched. Ethan cursed under his breath. This wasn't forecast. There wasn't supposed to be rain. Emily shook her head violently. It's not supposed to happen. It can't. The flames flicked higher, fed by their frantic fuel. But the rain kept coming, steady, unnatural. Cold drops streaked through the glow, slipping down their skin, soaking into clothes. And beyond the light, the eyes never moved. Watching, waiting. The fire burned bright, hot, defiant. But each hiss of rain on wood carried a promise. The safety wouldn't last. The fire hissed and spit as the rain poured harder, smoke rising with every dying crackle. Their circle of safety shrank second by second, the shadows pressing in. Keep it alive. Caleb shouted, his hands shoving wet branches into the pit. Rachel knelt beside him, striking useless matches that fizzled in the damp. They won't light, they won't light. Ethan's voice cracked, desperate. Keep trying, don't stop. He grabbed at Sophie's lighter, flicking it over and over, sparks but no flame. Emily sobbed, shoving handfuls of damp tinder into the pit, her hands shaking too violently to steady them. The fire coughed, hissed, and went black. Darkness collapsed over them like a curtain. Dozens of red eyes flared in the void, circling, closing in. Then the scream. Rachel's voice tore the night as something seized her ankle and dragged her hard across the mud. She clawed at the ground, shrieking, "Help me. Don't let it." Her cry cut off as the shadows yanked her past the last glimmer of light and into the forest's black throat. Sophie's sobs broke into a high scream as Ethan shouted, "Get the firelight, keep trying." But the dark wasn't finished. A wet thud, a grunt of pain. Ethan's scream burst out, raw and terrifying, echoing through the ridge. "Something has me," he cried, his voice ripping apart as he was dragged into the unseen. His hands scraped over stone, nails peeling away, before the shadows swallowed him. Still, the others didn't stop. Caleb struck match after match, his hands steady even as his face went pale. Emily jammed, shaking tinder under his flame. Sophie's sobs filled the night as she flicked the useless lighter over and over. Sophie's cry cut sharp through the dark. "No, don't." The match finally caught. Caleb dropped it into the pit, the tinder sparking, flames crawling upward in a desperate blaze. The fire roared back to life, pushing the dark. Then they saw it, Sophie's body in midair near the edge of the light. Her body jerked backward, her scream breaking into the trees as the smoke-like shadows coiled around her waist and yanked her shrieking into the dark. Her cries faded, torn away into the rain. The rain had not let up. It poured in sheets, running down Caleb's face, soaking his hair flat against his forehead. The fire sputtered, small tongues of flame fighting a losing battle against the storm. Only two remained. Emily rocked close to the pit, shivering, her eyes wide and raw from crying. She looked up at Caleb, her lips trembling. "They're gone," she whispered. "All of them?" Caleb's jaw tightened. His knuckles were white around the handle of the hatchet, his only weapon now. He didn't look at her, only at the fire. The flames hissed, shrank, sputtered. The shadows pressed in closer. Red eyes flickered just beyond the reach of the dim glow. Pacing, waiting. Caleb crouched in front of Emily, forcing her to meet his eyes. Rain streaked down his face, but there was no fear in it now, only a grim, unshakable resolve. "Emily," he said, his voice low, steady. "You can't let it die. Do you hear me?" She blinked at him, shaking. What do you mean?" "You keep the fire alive," he told her. He glanced over his shoulder into the dark. Something shifted there, the sound of heavy steps circling. "No matter what you hear, no matter what happens, you hover over it, feed it, don't move." Emily's throat closed, the words barely leaving her lips. "You're scaring me." Emily's throat closed, the words barely leaving her lips. "You're scaring me." Caleb reached out, his wet hand gripping her shoulder firm, almost rough. "Only one of us is walking out of this. If that fire dies, none of us will." Her chest hitched, breath quick and shallow. She shook her head violently. No, we both." Caleb looked back at the dimming fire, the light fading against the storm. His grip on the hatchet tightened, his face hardened into something final. "Keep the fire alive," he said again. The shadows shifted closer. The fire hissed, collapsing into embers. Emily's scream caught in her throat as Caleb slowly rose, stepping back into the dimming glow, the rain pouring harder around him. The fire spat and shrank, steam rising where the rain smothered its edges. "Emily!" Caleb's voice cut through the storm. "Hover over the fire now." Emily scrambled forward on her hands and knees, trying to block the downpour with her own body. She froze, tears streaking down her soaked face. "Caleb, do it!" His shout cracked like the hatchet in his hand. "Hover over it, keep it alive." Emily dropped down, her arms spread wide, shielding the flames as best she could. Heat licked her skin, stinging against the cold rain. She pressed lower, her face close to the fire, the smoke choking her throat. She risked one last glance upward. Caleb stood just beyond her reach, framed in the dim orange light. His jaw set, his shoulders squared. The hatchet gleamed wet in his grip. It was the last time she saw him. The fire sputtered again, throwing out a brief flare that pushed the shadows back, just far enough for her to glimpse the outline of figures circling, their eyes burning red. Then the flare died, and Caleb's silhouette was swallowed whole. "Keep it alive, Emily." His voice roared over the storm fainter, as if it was being dragged away into the black. His scream broke, raw and guttural, as the sounds followed, shuffling, dragging, the thud of his boots scraping stone, his hatchet clattering against the rocks. Then silence. Only the rain. Only the hiss of the dying fire beneath her hands. Emily pressed down harder, trembling, tears mixing with the rain. She couldn't look up. She didn't dare. She just clung to the fire, the last light between her and the dark. Emily pressed low over the fire, the flames snapping under her trembling arms. Smoke stung her eyes, water poured down her hair, and still she didn't move. The storm seemed to fall quiet around her, though she knew it hadn't. The roar of rain dulled, replaced by something worse circling steps, crunching wet earth just beyond the glow. She felt it before she heard it, a hot, damp breath against the back of her neck gone before she could flinch. She held her breath, clutching the fire tighter. Then came the voices. Emily. Caleb's tone, soft and steady, drifting just beyond the crackle of the fire. "You don't need to be afraid anymore." Another Rachel sob. "Please, come here. It's okay now." Sophie's laugh, weak and broken. "The fire won't save you. Not forever." Emily shook her head violently, pressing her forehead nearly into the embers. No. The circle tightened. She felt them pacing, around and around, never stepping into the light, only brushing against it like predators testing a cage. Red eyes blinked in and out pairs at a time, watching, waiting. Her own name hissed through the rain, layered now, overlapping Caleb, Rachel, Ethan, Sophie, even Tyler voices she knew. Voices gone, voices begging her. "Step out, Emily. Just one step. We'll take you home. Come with us." She squeezed her eyes shut, rocking forward, fists clenched against the muddy ground. Every muscle in her body screamed to run, to hide, to do something. But she couldn't leave the fire. Not while the voices circled. Not while she felt their heat, their hunger, pressing closer and closer, until it seemed the darkness itself was leaning in to breathe against her skin. She whispered to herself, trembling, "Stay in the fire. Stay in the fire." The creatures, the voices, the shadows laughed. The fire hissed and cracked beneath her, the only barrier between her and the waiting dark. The hours bled together. Emily's body shook so hard her teeth ached. She hunched over the fire, hands outstretched like she could hold its light in her palms, guarded against the shadows that pressed closer. The voices never stopped. Sometimes they whispered, soft as breath against her ear, Caleb, telling her she'd be safe if she just stood up. Sometimes they shrieked, Tyler screaming in pain, over and over, until her ears rang. Shapes moved just beyond the glow, their steps heavy and deliberate, circling. Eyes glared from the dark, always pairs, sometimes dozens at once. red glints watching her sway on the edge of collapse. The fire hissed. Each time it faltered, she sobbed and shoved more damp sticks into the embers, sparks stinging her skin. Each flare of light pushed the shadows back, but only for a moment. They paced, waiting, as though the dark itself breathed and grew stronger with every passing hour. At some point, she couldn't tell when the voices began to turn cruel. "Why are you still here?" Rachel's broken tone. "You let us die." Ethan's voice cracked with accusation. "You should be with us," Caleb whispered, so close she swore she felt his lips against her ear. Emily covered her ears, screaming into the night. "Stop, stop," but the circle only tightened. And then, just as the fire sputtered low, just as she thought she would collapse into the mud and let the dark take her, the rain stopped. The forest went still, no voices, no breath against her neck. The eyes blinked once, then vanished, swallowed by the black. Emily lifted her head. The fire was nearly gone, only faint orange veins curling through ash. But through the trees, faint and gray, came the first suggestion of morning. Her body gave out, and she wept into her hands as the pale light spread. By the time she stumbled to her feet, the forest was silent, heavy with absence. She staggered forward, half blind, her throat raw from sobbing. The forest had gone quiet. Emily sat trembling before the last of the embers, rocking back and forth, eyes hollow, lips whispering words she didn't know. The voices had faded with the rain. The glowing eyes, the circling footsteps, all gone with the night. She hugged her arms tight around her knees, refusing to look away from the fragile glow. When the sun finally began to break the horizon, its pale light dripping through the trees, she almost didn't believe it. Her throat burned with dry sobs. She pressed her forehead to her knees, and then voices, not whispers. Not mimicry, real, sharp, human. This way, tracks, fresh tracks here. God, over there, someone's sitting. Emily flinched, jerking her head up. Men in bright jackets pushed through the tree line, heavy boots thudding in the mud. The blaze of their orange vests caught the first light, almost blinding after the hours of shadow. One of them froze. "Jesus Christ, it's a girl." They surged toward her, splashing through the wet ground. Emily tried to stand, but her legs buckled. She fell into their arms, sobbing as strong hands held her upright. "Easy, easy, we've got you. Where are the others? Were you alone?" Her lips parted, but no sound came. Just a low, broken whimper. They exchanged looks, grim, urgent. "Radio it in. We found one." Emily turned her face toward the rising sun, tears cutting through the mud on her cheeks. But as they guided her toward safety, her eyes darted once more to the tree line. And in the farthest shadows, where daylight couldn't yet reach, she thought she saw them, still those red eyes, watching, waiting. They half-carried her through the underbrush, their voices overlapping with clipped urgency. Emily's ears rang, her body numb, but fragments still reached her. "She's freezing, get that blanket out. God, look at her hands. Lucky she's alive." She tried to speak, her voice barely a rasp. We've only been out here 5 nights. The other shook his head grimly. "Kid, your group's been gone a lot longer than that." Emily blinked, confusion breaking through the fog in her mind. "What?" He tightened the blanket around her shoulders. "Search started 2 weeks ago. You've been missing over 16 days. Her breath caught in her throat. 16. Her mind reeled. The nights, the voices, the fire, it had only felt like 5. Her legs gave way, but they steadied her, guiding her through the trees toward the waiting light of morning. Behind her, in the silence between the rescuers' voices and the crackle of their radios, Emily thought she heard it again, a faint whisper. A familiar voice. "Emily." She clenched her eyes shut, burying her face in the blanket, refusing to look back. The men never heard it, but she knew. The fire had kept her alive, but there was something in the trees. Something waiting just beyond the campfire. Tell us in the comments if you know what wait beyond the campfire. If you felt the flames whisper tonight, make sure you leave a like and subscribe before the flame fades.